So tell us, in simple terms, what Booktrack is.
So Booktrack is a synchronized soundtrack that plays back as you read an ebook. So it's a combination of music, ambient sound and sound effects, and our core technology measures your reading speed, and then the soundtrack dynamically adjusts to match what you're reading when you're reading it. So the best way to describe it is to think of it as a movie style soundtrack, but while you read to yourself, not an audio book, a soundtrack.
It's quite interesting too with the measuring your reading speed, because it's just a fascinating thing to, I suppose, by having them mark around on the site, you almost get to know what your reading speed is, when you might not have looked into that before.
Yeah. One of the cool things around what we do is, and why it's so hard to do what we do, is everyone reads at a different reading speed, and you change your reading speed as you read, depending on how complex the text is, how exciting or boring the book is. So we've spent the best part of 8 years, 4 years full time actually getting that to work seamlessly.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I've created this podcast series is to show people that want to get into the music industry that there are more options than just rock star and manager. So like I was talking to you before, and I said one of the coincidences was when I was talking to Craig from Booktrack, he introduced me to Chaz from The Rabble, who now works for Booktrack as well. And just for the musos out there that might be interested, what's Chaz's role, or can you tell us Chaz's role at Booktrack? What's he going to do?
Yes, so Chaz is our we call him our audio evangelist, but he's our audio engineer here. Yeah. But with that said, he doesn't just do that. He does support. He's regularly in contact with many of our fans around the world. In fact, they call him Chaz from the future because he's in New Zealand, and a lot of our audience is in America, and so they always ask him, "Hey, is the world still spinning? Is everything still going all good?" So it's great, and I think a lot of his character comes through, and he's just such a talented musician. He the way what he can put together, how he can teach people what's going on. His manner's awesome. He does a lot of our tutorials, our voiceovers, and he's great for our business.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed actually, is because I like simple things. I can sit there and understand it. If you want to put it in a complicated manner, that's fine, but simple is always better from a teacher's point of view. I looked at your tutorial, one of the ones that Chaz put up, and it was really simple. Easy to understand, easy to follow.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about musicians is they're great with people. It's just a skill that I think musicians generally have, is they're used to dealing with people all the time, and everything Chaz does, that comes through in spades. So it's great for us.
Yeah, cool. I personally see too, like I was saying, a huge potential for Booktrack to work with the New Zealand music industry. Bands could use it to put alongside their lyrics, music to their bios even. Music teachers could use it to sound instructions in, again, a simple way to absorb things. And Booktrack might even like to tie in later with, say, live music events and things like that. So what would your thoughts be on that? And have you've obviously looked into it a little already?
Yeah. First of all amazing ideas. Some of those we haven't actually thought about, but what we've really tried to do is create a technology and let people do amazing things. So Steve Jobs said, if you create amazing tools, people will do amazing things. And just yesterday, a 16-year-old wrote a story, a chapter, added a soundtrack to it, and we've been doing this for 4 years or more than 4 years. It would be the best book track anyone has ever done. and I think that's what's amazing about the future around what we're doing. I mean, you brought up a couple of examples there. Yeah, I mean, I never thought about a music teacher could give a description what they're going to do, then they could play it so you can hear it. Or even have some instructions while it's actually being played back. So I mean, other people have talked about using it for plays. If you're doing a play, you don't need a whole band. It can be all pre-recorded and then synchronized, and someone could just be sitting there watching what's going on in the play and making sure it synchronizes in. So I mean, there's a huge amount of opportunity and different uses which are only just being explored.
And talking about music teachers, and just teachers in general, how have you found bringing Booktrack to the wider New Zealand market or audience? We were talking before how sometimes it can feel when you go offshore there's a bit more support, and it may be because you're a little bit different to them. You're coming from an alien world almost. How have you found it in maybe some positives and negatives?
Yeah, so right from the beginning, we realised what we're doing was a global opportunity, and it wasn't unique to just New Zealand. So, in fact, when we launched the business, it launched in New York, and since then we've been in New York. We've got a San Francisco office, and almost all of our effort is into promoting our company offshore. We do very little in New Zealand. In the education space, we've just launched something called Booktrack Classroom. It's all our tools freely available for teachers to use. It could be music teachers, English teachers, librarians, anyone who wants to get kids interested in reading and writing. Because let's be honest, all these amazing video games and films made. It's a way to get them engaged in a new way.
Yeah.
So as we took this both internationally and locally, they seem to. I call it. I've got this term. It's a congratulations culture in the US, where they'll hear your idea and then they'll turn around and say congratulations. And for New Zealanders, it doesn't sit well because you kind of feel like you haven't really done anything. Whereas here in New Zealand, people tend to judge it maybe a little bit harder and use lots of terms for that. I think one of the best things New Zealand's got going for it is its creativeness, and its creative industries are very strong for such a small country. And I think just generally we should make sure we continue to congratulate and support, because their creativity is what changes the world, not finance, not commerce. And I think all that different side of brain thinking is where we need to be.
Yeah, really good point there. One of your target moments, I was going to say, I've actually brought this up already, your target market is for teachers. So do you think music is an important part of education in general? Yeah, I mean, music changes our lives. There's very few things that can have a massive impact on your emotion like music can. It's probably the only thing I can really think of. If you take the music away from a film, the scene, all the emotion dies with it, right? Yeah.
Now, if you think about back to when you're a teenager, if I knew the right song for you or anyone listening to this here, if I put that song on, it'll take you instantly back to that moment. Your emotions, your feelings, everything that was going on in your life. That's why we still wear some of those clothes or those bands we hang on to, because that's a real big part of our identity. It's part of your life when your hormones are going crazy. But as a teenager, music drives your life. There's no doubt about it. Whether you're playing or listening, it's a massive part of your culture.
Yeah.
So what we are doing is we're bringing that into the classroom. So now, instead of when you're asked to study Shakespeare, say you're doing King Lear or Romeo and Juliet, the teacher can now say, right, split up, you do verse 1, you do verse 2, go and add your own soundtrack to that. Now that's making Shakespeare, as an example, relevant to what really drives your life today, and that's music. I think the potential for this in education is massive. Auckland University have just finished a 12-month study that they've shown it gives an instant comprehension of 17% when you read with Booktrack as opposed to those that don't. So imagine going from a B to an A. That's the difference that it makes. And so, but I think for us it's about fun and engagement. How many kids, the stats in New Zealand, so Statistics New Zealand have done this, 12 to 22-year-old people in New Zealand, they spend 10 minutes a day reading, but nearly 2.5 hours watching television every day, right? Now, not anti-watching television, but I think reading is an important part of culture and society, helps broaden our horizons. I always say a society that reads is one that succeeds. Yeah. But you know what? The way we read has not changed in more than 2,000 years. Distribution's changed enormously. Once only the wealthy had libraries, now we carry around complete libraries on our mobile phones, right?
Yeah.
But actually, the way we read, whether it was on a physical book back 2,000 years ago to today, it's the same experience. You even swipe to turn the page on your phone when everything actually scroll up and down on it.
Yeah.
So Booktrack is the only enhancement to reading that's delivered to you while you read. So every other enhancement, adding videos and games to reading, they stop you reading. So we're actually all about the reading experience, but bringing to reading the one thing that every other entertainment medium has brought and is crucial to those mediums, and that's audio, music, ambient sounds, creating scenes, making it more immersive, and getting the students into it.
And that's the thing, if you can engage people, then they'll listen a bit deeper, things will sink in, they'll get an appreciation. If you can appreciate, they'll understand, and then their understanding of other aspects, other cultures, other perspective, perspectives is what gives people the ability to continue to learn, which is important to get things done and to grow yourself, to get better yourself, isn't it? So
100%. I mean, I think one of the most exciting things around what we do, I mean, and we've worked with Peter Jackson's sound team at Park Road Post Productions. They're one of our investors in the business. Yeah. The quality of work they produce is phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal. But now we're seeing, 15-year-olds, the other side of the world, creating work that's, it might be 1% below that, but it's amazing. Yeah. And, people do. If you give them the opportunity, they'll create amazing things. And and I really believe that's the most exciting thing about what we do. Yeah, you can read with the soundtrack, and it's pretty cool. But you can create your own, bring your own individuality, your own creativity, your own taste, your own mood to that. That's pretty powerful stuff, and that's not something that's locked away. You've got to pay thousands of dollars for. It's free for anyone to try.
That's awesome. Really cool. You guys work with the sound room too.
Yes.
To get some great classical compositions.
Yeah.
Do those compositions earn royalties when they're played, or are there negotiations first that take place just to, how does that work?
Yeah, so I think first of all, the sound room are an amazing group. What they do, what they produce is phenomenal and great for the New Zealand industry. I think it doesn't, not particularly the sound room, but just in general, the way we work with our sound libraries is we own a lot of the music. We've had it composed, we've paid for it, we own it. Yep. And a whole big other chunk of our music is we license, right? So we pay royalties to the owners of that music so that we can use it. And so we do a combination of, buyouts or licensing, and it just depends on what we're doing at the time or what makes the most sense. And I think in the future, what we want to do is create a marketplace for this. So if you're a budding composer in New Zealand or anywhere in the world and you want to put a track up there to use, well, you can put a price on it and sell it, and people, if they want to pay for it, they can include it in a book track.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and we also want to do the same on the author side. If you've written a short story and you want someone to put a book track to it, you might sell your story for $1, and then some amazing musician can come along and go, I'll create a soundtrack for that, add another $1 on top, and then sell it for $2. And one of the exciting things, I think, for the music industry around what we're doing is, you can now have multiple soundtracks for the same story. So just take a Shakespeare classic. Just say, Ryan, you might do a thrash metal version of Romeo and Juliet. I might do a heavy rock one, and one of your listeners here could do a classical one. Yeah. Now your one could actually take off, and you could have 100,000 people or 200,000 people all try that. And then now the next time you put out a book track to another title, it could be totally nothing to do with Romeo and Juliet. You know what's going to happen? 200,000 people are going to try that as well. Yeah. So now you are very, very valuable to a publisher, because they know if you soundtrack one of their stories, 200,000 people are going to turn up. Mm-hmm. Now you can't buy that, right? So what we're creating is something where not just the authors are, or what everyone follows. It's actually the creators of the soundtracks are what everyone follows, and they're going to trust you to pick the books that are going to match your style. And I think that's hugely exciting for the industry. So that's what we're working towards as well.
People are interacting and creating as well. It's not just like they click a button and then they've used Booktrack and that's it.
Yeah, what I mean is more like the creator of the book track actually becomes their own. That becomes something that's very valued as a highly skilled. If you've got a brand and a name for that, then people are going to start following you, not necessarily the book or the author, that's like a whole new marketplace that people can make money off, which is exciting.
Really cool. Have you had any meetings with APRA or PPNZ, the Now Recorded Music New Zealand? I think we were talking a little before about that.
Yeah, we've met with APRA though. Quite early on. We wanted to talk about what we're doing, how it might fit in the industry, and licensing, what that means, and very, very supportive, very helpful.
Nice. And the reason I bring that up is because there'll be other musicians wanting to start projects, or businesses, and they need to be aware of these different companies that are there and organisations that are there. So
I think one of the great things about APRA is often people, depending on which side you're on of the table, people can see them as the big heavy stick and the big and scary, but they're not at all. They're quite open and collaborative, and really want to support the industry and everything inside it. So I think I'd recommend anyone, if you're doing any music related project, you should talk to them straight away, because very helpful and been good for us.
Yeah. And is there any way for artists, New Zealand musicians, to upload their own music?
So at the moment, if you wanted to add your own music to a book track, you can do that. When you go to add, there's a big plus thing, you can bring your own music in. No one else gets access to that, just for you, for your own title. Yeah. If you wanted to sell through, if you wanted to become a part of our catalogue, then you just have to contact us direct, and we'll see whether there's any interest there. We've already got a pretty big catalogue at the moment, so but we're always open. I mean, we just had a artist from overseas came and just said, hey, can I just get my stuff into your catalogue so people can start to use it and see it, and you guys don't want any money for it, I just want to get my work out there. And so we said sure, so we worked it out. So we're always open to different ideas.
Yeah, and just to simplify that for, say, the young musician that's starting or still at school but thinking about this, so they can upload their own music to their words.
Yep.
And it will sound cool, and that's fine. Now, they don't get paid for that because that's not getting published anywhere. It's their own thing.
Yeah.
But there is also a chance to talk to Booktrack directly about putting one of their songs into Booktrack's list of songs.
Yeah,
just to make it simple.
Correct. There's an opportunity from time to time, and for sure.
Yeah. But just to let them know, you're not going to say yes to everyone that rings up,
For a bunch of reasons.
Getting emails back saying, "Hey, man."
No. For a bunch of reasons. One is we've got 20,000 audio files in our library. It's extraordinarily high quality. Like it is, it's absolutely premium quality.
Yeah.
And it would have to be a gap in our library where we felt we needed that. I mean, what the bigger opportunity, to be honest, is find someone who likes to write. Get them to write a short story and bring your original music on top of that, and then share that with your friends, because you can do that. You own that. It's collaborative. It's good fun. In the future, you'll also be able to sell that on our platform. So that complete book track you could sell. Yeah.
Nice. And I just wanted to mention that too, because quite often musicians that are starting out, it's like anything. I think they send their music and they think, "Why did my music get put on Booktrack or something?" They don't realise you've got 20,000 songs, and it might not be a fit for what you're looking for either. So
yeah, very much so, exactly.
Is there anything in the New Zealand music industry that you think? Well, let's start with a couple of positives. And of course, at the moment, you're dealing more with teachers and literature. But as far as music goes, is there anything, just as a music fan, or that you? What are some positives about the New Zealand industry, you think?
I think, like I said earlier, I think we're extraordinarily creative. A lot of other people overseas would say the same thing, but I think the realities are a little bit different. I think everyone's very quick to look to the Lords or the Neil Finns or whatever's big, and other mega acts. But I think it's that the opportunity is everything below that, and I think also looking to use your work in new ways. So something that happens in the publishing industry is they say today, if you're just selling your raw book with kind of nothing else that you can leverage off that, you're not going to ever get much out of it, right? And I think the same with music. If you think about anyone listening or yourself, Ryan, think about all the stuff you've written over the years or what you've done with it. It doesn't always have to be a hit single. There's lots of other opportunities now that are exploding. There are platforms now you can easily get your work to the world, SoundCloud, and all that sort of work. And I think one of the ways to think about your craft, I think, as a musician today, is don't pigeonhole it and don't throw anything away. And keep an eye out for how it can be repackaged or reused. And Booktrack's a great example of that. You might have recorded a song maybe with your band, and and one of the things about Booktrack is you can bring a whole song in if you want, but you can also strip the lyrics out, and then you've got this whole great piece you can use in a whole new way. So I think the opportunity in the future around music, I think, is probably bigger than it's ever been. The dynamics of the industry have changed enormously. There's a lot more free or freemium, and artists have to be prepared to do that to get recognition.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, all of that work that is done, if it's great quality, it can find a home and make revenue, which is exciting.
Yeah, I like the point you said about the number one hit too, because when you think about it, half your favourite artists probably haven't had number one hits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Musicians do that all the time. They're striving for this big hit single. But then they go, I say, what's your favourite band? Oh, it's Pantera. Well,
When was their last number one?
Yeah, or it's Tommy Emmanuel. He's my favourite guitarist in the world. I don't think he's ever had a number one, but he's, as a musician, he's just mind blowing. So and it is about a career too. If you're really into music or anything, it's probably pays to look at the long-term career rather than just trying to have 15 minutes of fame. There's enough of that around, and it's probably the acts that do have the 15 minutes you're slagging off half the time anyway as a musician.
I agree. I always say, if you're doing what you love, you'll live a great life, right? If you're doing something just to make money, your life may be more comfortable from time to time, but you're not going to get the same passion out of it. And any creative industry is tough, right? Because that's the nature of it. And there are people that do very, very well, and there are people that don't do so well. But what does well mean? The way I look upon it is, if you're doing something you love every day, and say it's making music, it will find a home, and you'll earn a living off that. If you're that passionate about it, you'll get there. But you've got to have that passion and drive. And at the end of the day, you're creating new things all the time for this world, and that changes the world. Not people that are, providing services and insurance or finance. I mean, that's not changing the world.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Last one, Paul. So you are doing really well with Booktrack, and it's cool to see as well. If you had a magic mic and all the musicians starting in the New Zealand industry could hear you, but you could only say one sentence to offer them some advice to succeed in their own startups or just playing music careers, what would one sentence be?
It would be to help each other, because no matter how great you think you are, or even if you think someone else is, you just can't get there on your own. There's no way. And I think there's good and bad people in this world, but generally, if you help each other, it comes back around pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how a little bit of a help in the right way, and sometimes it's just some advice, sometimes it's an introduction, whatever it is. But if everyone's doing their own thing, you can't magnify that effort. When you start helping each other, all of a sudden that Lord hit becomes another hit and another hit and another hit and another hit. And I think we're going to see that in the next little while. It's not just about being collaborative. It's like just genuinely helping someone, not expecting anything back. But you know what? That will magnify the industry 20-fold overnight. And I actually think that we're pretty good at that in New Zealand. And we're really good at that offshore. One of the successes of our business has been New Zealanders offshore helping us in influential positions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very cool, mate. I agree with it 100% too. Awesome. Okay, thanks for the chat.
Cool. No, great, Ryan. Thank you. Thanks, mate.